I was reflecting back on my first head of people experience or chief people officer experience, and for individuals who are going into their career for the first time, and they may experience this thing where it's like I'm not enough, or like, well, so what would you wish you knew then that we can share with others that are starting their HR career now? My first head of people role was a disaster. Like I don't even have it on my LinkedIn anymore. I'm just like it was a huge mistake. I knew week one I made a huge mistake, and
I feel like we all have that though. I feel like
yeah.
we all have that story.
And so in my head, in my sort of bias, I'm like, I bet you that's been the experience of a lot of people out there. So I wanted to ask about your first head of people experience. Was it positive or was it negative? Would you do it all over again? And then also, like, what have you done since? And what do you wish you knew then that you know now? Unsurprisingly, the vast majority of them said it was a very difficult experience. It was more difficult than any role they had done prior to that. So the vast majority said it was more difficult, but the vast majority said it was a positive experience. And I think even as great or greater would say they would do it all over again, that first role. I'm like, huh, that's really interesting. Now, what was I was kind of surprised about was that for those who've been in a people role before, the very next role was most likely another chief people officer role, but half of them, more than half, I think 55% said they've exited the function. So they're no longer in an operator role. They're consulting or coaching. They've gone into business for themselves. So that to me is kind of like it's worrying. Like people like the seasoned leaders are exiting out still, even in this era right now after the Great Resignation and all that. But back to surprises. What I was kind of surprised was that there wasn't a thread. So when I ask you what do you wish you knew then that now, there wasn't a thread around like more HR experience. I wish I knew more about comp. I wish I knew more about people analytics. I wish I knew that didn't come up at all. Instead, what came up was I wish I knew more how business acumen. I wish I knew how to actually be a business leader. I wish I knew how to build relationships and leverage relationships. And like, it was all this like non-HR function stuff, non-HR experience, but business leader. So being a really good business leader. And to me, at 20 years in now, it's more of how I think about my role is knowing the P&L and sort of knowing that first. I got to connect the people plans to the business. I can't just in isolation say, hey, here's a very shiny people strategy, unless it connects well. I'm gonna have to leave some things I've got a personal passion for, but it doesn't connect to the business. I'm going to tailor the people strategy but to do that, I got to know the business in and out. And so I think of really good people leaders now. What's a modern people leader? What's a really good people leader in this modern era? It's someone who could probably do a COO role. They think like that. They could alternate. They're the CEO's number two in all things, people, but they're number two in the sense that they could also like, hey, if I need you in a pinch, I could put you in a COO role. And so that was interesting from the respondents was how much of like they wish they knew that then the importance of business acumen.